We're back and so excited for today's guest, Jane Barlow Christensen. She has an amazing book on animals. I just said animals.
We're technically animals.
Hard. This is not.
A large variant of animals and
Yeah.
how herbs affect animals, specifically human being animals.
Ah, there you go. That was a
Right?
good. Yeah,
I
thank you.
got you. That's why we co-host.
Jane was kind enough to send us her book, and it is incredible. Off air, I was asking her, so do you just know all of this information? And go ahead and share a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so I really kind of came into this, the what I do now, just because I was born to parents who not only loved plants and plant medicine and natural stuff, but my dad was a medicinal botanist. So his PhD was medicinal botany. So basically, what makes plants turn into medicine for human beings? And he had a special love of Native American plants. And we grew up in Idaho, and I currently live in Utah, which is right next to Idaho. But we were always out, not just identifying plants, but we were camping. We'd be going to church, and my dad would see something he wanted to identify, and we'd pull over. And I'm the second oldest of 14 kids, so I have a huge sibling group. So we'd all jump out, and he would say, "Okay, this is the kind of, you use this plant. This is the time of day you collect it. Here's the botanical name. Here's the common name." And so we just kind of grew up like this. And it wasn't every time we got out of the car, but it was often enough. And there were pots of stuff growing. We had a huge garden and we didn't hardly ever go to the doctor. And then we realized as teenagers, man, our parents are so geeky, right? Right. And so we all kind of fell off as we grew up and became in our 20s. And then we pretty quickly realized, okay, dad was on to something.
Yeah.
And so I have grown kids and grandkids at this point, and I've raised my kids on herbal remedies and my grandkids now. And when you have not just the knowledge that comes from the way you were born or where you were born, but you have the application and the experience because I'm comfortable with it. So it doesn't take any courageousness for me to say, "Oh, you got a fever? Let's do this." Oh. So that's kind of my background in a nutshell, and here I am.
And we're treating a fever with plants. We don't
Yeah.
use Tylenol and ibuprofen. No,
No.
that's amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, most pharmaceutical drugs have some type of plant start. In fact, aspirin is white willow bark. So, but you can't patent Mother Nature. So the pharmaceutical industry has to take out something and change it or make a chemical similar, something similar that's maybe got a chemical component and then you can patent it. But with Mother Nature, you know,
Mother Nature.
Uh, she can cover everything. I've seen some things that people would think are miracles, and they're just the way that world works. We're just so disconnected. We're disconnected now from Mother Nature, from the plants. The plants are there to serve us, and it's in the modern world, 100 and 150 years, we're disconnected from that, and now we don't trust it. So it's like we get a fever and we go, "Oh, we better get rid of it," when really the mindset should be, "Oh, my body is heating up because it's trying to heal me." You can burn off bacteria with a fever. You can burn out, there's things that happen when you get a fever. And I'm not saying you should let it rage out of control, but yes, the long answer to your question is plants can help you with fevers, certain plants.
That's awesome. So do you still have a garden?
Oh, I have a huge garden at this point. Yeah. And I also know how to forage. I know how to forage out. I have friends. I live next door to a person who sits on 5 acres, and he has a ton of plants just on his property. Um, so yes, I have a big garden, and I know how to source plants from all over. Because there's one of my favorite plants comes from Africa, and of course it doesn't grow here, but I know how to source it and get it and make it into a tincture to use for myself and my family. So it's a cool legacy that I carry on.
That is really cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I don't even know how we skipped over the 14 siblings, but not get distracted. I'm going to just leave it at that because, man, your household must have been so fun and so chaotic.
You
But
know what? It was really fun. In fact, so just to quickly just because that is a really cool fact. I don't think there's families around that are that size anymore. My dad and mom met in college, and my mom told my dad she wanted a dozen kids. Now they met at Brigham Young University. They were Mormon, so there is that piece that was like, okay. So my mom had 11. So I have 10 natural siblings, and then they adopted 3 Native American kids when I was 4.
oh,
So they grew up with us. But my mom had 11, and it was amazing, wild and crazy. And it's too bad big families aren't part of the norm anymore because you learn really good skills that you don't learn in a small family.
yeah, I mean, my mom is one of 6, and I thought our holidays were zoos, so I can't imagine. But that is a really cool fact. And I think, I think it can kind of take us into like a bigger conversation where if we think about why a lot of people aren't having bigger families, there's a lot of pain points around time and money and things of that nature, and kind of what you were mentioning about how you can't patent nature, but
Yeah.
that's why, the pharmaceutical company started to tinker with it. There's like when we look at, the lifestyle we want or the stressors we want to endure, be that financial burdens, living smaller, having more like kids to compensate, like these are real things that people have to kind of prioritize and manage. And I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong way because there isn't. There's your way, whatever that is for the unique individual. But I think it speaks to some of the most meaningful things in life are about discomfort and work and effort. And what was coming up for me when I was listening to you, like, I don't know, foraging, I couldn't find this stuff on my own. If I go to a CVS, I can quickly find whatever I need. So I guess one of the things I'm curious about is like, how do you encourage people who are just used to the convenience of like, just go to the CVS, get the pill? How do you help them or encourage them to kind of choose the plant and natural route?
Yeah, that is such a perfect question. And what I've really noticed is there has been a huge surge, especially in the last 5 years, of people who are really interested in saying maybe the pharmaceutical route or a quick cover up, just because I'm familiar with that, just go into CVS pharmacy and grab something. Maybe I need to do some due diligence and start looking at more natural ways because I think people are intuitively realizing, oh, there's things that I can do naturally if I'm willing to take responsibility. So what
Yeah.
I always suggest that people do is because it's overwhelming. It's like, where do I start? There's thousands of plants and there's things that I've heard of, like everyone's heard of echinacea and maybe elderberry or, you know, chamomile, stuff like that. But what I encourage people to do is to start with like their spice cabinet because there's a lot of powerful herbal remedies in there. Like one of my favorite spices is cayenne pepper. And cayenne pepper is not for everyone as far as like sprinkling it on your food every single day. So I'm a person who doesn't like hot, spicy foods, but cayenne pepper I know is so good for me. This was one of the things my dad told all of us. When you turn 35, you need to put cayenne pepper as part of either part of your diet or part of your supplement routine. So, because this is why cayenne pepper is good for your metabolism, it's good for your digestion, it's really good for your heart. It's a vasodilator, so it helps with circulation. And when I was 14, I watched my dad stop a heart attack with a cayenne pepper tincture with a neighbor. And it was, so I watched, a, this was, and that, how does that not stay with you for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
So, and you would not think, okay, well, cayenne pepper, that's everyone knows about cayenne pepper, but things like turmeric, things like ginger, and things like basil and rosemary and garlic, these are all things that we cook with. And if we go, okay, well, what are the health benefits of some of these things that we're familiar with? And then let's add them to it with intention to the foods that we eat and realize, oh, we're actually using medicinal herbs. And that's a great place to start from my perspective.
I love that. for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
One, like we all have these herbs, or
Yep.
some herbs at least in our house, but
Yep.
also even how you kind of shared it was like being proactive versus reactive. Like, don't wait for the digestive issues or the heart issues, but like if you know that these are different herbs that you can kind of sprinkle in your natural diet, do so with intention. And like literally as you were talking, I do like spicy food. So I was thinking, I'm like, oh, I use, chili pepper and paprika and cumin like all the time. I'm like, cayenne, welcome to the club. You're gonna be there all the time now.
That's perfect.
I did have a question though about, like the natural herbs that they sell versus like the ground up ones that most
Yep.
people have. Is there a difference that we need to be aware of?
Yes, a very big difference. And again, great question. So, if you think about the herbs that are in your spice cupboard, a lot of them aren't used as much as you would use. I mean, they're just not used as often. And like a little jar or a little tin will last you a long time typically. If you, this is going to surprise a lot of people, but if you have spices that have been sitting in your cupboard longer than 6 months, they will probably help flavor your food, but they won't add a lot of medicinal benefits. So if you think about one of my best examples is pepper, black pepper. It's now become very popular for a long time now to have a pepper grinder. So you grind fresh pepper at a nice restaurant, they grind fresh pepper on your food. And I know a lot of people prefer the taste of ground pepper, but here's the thing, what happens is when you grind up a spice, there's a lot of properties inside it, like a peppercorn. There's a really important compound called piperine. And you grind it fresh, and it's got a lot of really amazing benefits. One of them is it releases enzymes in your liver, which help with digestion and help with absorption of other powerful nutrients that might be in your food. But if you just sprinkle regular pepper that's already been ground, it might flavor your food, but it's going to lack almost all of its medicinal properties. So the fresher you can get your spices, the better. Like a basil plant, put it on. You can get a basil plant in the grocery store. Most people. Um, and just really source your spices in tiny amounts and source them as fresh as you can and keep them. If you have spices that have been in your cupboard for 10 years, you should probably toss them out.
Yeah.
I literally just cleaned out my spices last night and everything
Really?
like 2020 to 2021. I was like, oh, I guess I wasn't paying attention to the expiration date on
Well,
these.
in your defense, Seb is the key. He's the main chef in the house.
He is, that's true. I
Is that
blame
your
him.
husband?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Um, oh yeah. Sorry, Alicia. I don't mean to dominate questions, but I had one more. Um, Something that's bothered me. So I shared offline that my history started with like personal training and becoming a nutrition specialist before I got into coaching. And I really have to kind of temper how much I expose myself to this is how our food industry has gotten so disease oriented, for lack of better terms. Like I don't feel like they have our best interests in mind. I feel like they have their bottom line more in mind when they're making decisions. And I know that one of the things that I've researched is that the fiber density in our food now compared to what it was in like the 1970s is like, I think it was like 60% less. So it leaves us kind of consuming more calories to get the same amount of fiber from an orange, for example. And I mean, it cites all these reasons why, but I'm curious to your point, like plants are there for us to support us. How has the soil and kind of how we've lived our life, does it affect the support these plants offer, or have you seen any of that?
I'm not, so maybe can you rephrase your question? I mean, I understand what you're saying, but what
So
ex
yeah, so for a further context, like when I was doing my research around the food, it highlighted things like um, factory farming
Mhm.
and climate change. Like we
Mhm.
aren't allowing the natural cycles for soil to permeate and like do what it needs to do to then
Right,
fertilize our
right.
food. Is that also having a similar effect on plants?
Yeah, well, because if you think about biodiversity, there's a great doctor that I've been following for a while, Dr. Zach Bush. Have you heard of him?
I think I have. I'm a face person.
Yeah,
That name sounds very familiar.
yeah, he's an amazing human. He started a nonprofit called Farmers Footprint. And he's been helping America, so that's probably what you heard, right?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
there's a big movement happening, and it's been happening for a while, but I feel like it's really, really grabbing a hold on a grassroots kind of a way where this organization and others, and even just individual farmers, are realizing that when they plant a monoculture of crops, they don't have diversity, they don't rotate crops, they don't let their soil rest, whatever it may be, then the food that they produce is going to be less quality. And yes, less fiber, less nutrition, all of that. And I think from my perspective, and it might be because, I'm really surrounded by, I think we all surround ourselves with like-minded people who have the same, even in our own communities. I live in a big city. I live in Salt Lake City, and it's a very diverse city, but there's a big push for not just gardens, but things like chickens. In the city, people are, raising their own chickens. And, I think the thing to do is find a way to start growing your own food. And I don't care if you live in an apartment and you have a balcony. You have a little balcony, you can put a few pots out there. There is a way to start taking empowerment back for your health on a nutritional level. And
Mhm.
it's like the same thing we were talking about with herbs. It's overwhelming when you think about it. And of course, it's a lot more convenient to go to the grocery store and just pick up all your stuff. And I still shop at the grocery store, but I'm really choosy. Like I choose organic as much as I can, and there's aisles I stay out of. So
Yeah, and I like that comment because I think, at least I know I'm this way. I'm like, oh my God, this sounds fantastic. This is exactly what I want to do. And then my tendency is to jump all in, overwhelm myself, and not pick it up again. And I've learned that, so I don't do it as much being keywords anymore. But I like kind of your comment of like, start where you can, go to the grocery and get some herbs there when you need to. Like, don't make it something that you stress yourself out about, but use it supplementary and try and start striving and leaning more towards having that, garden yourself.
yeah, well, just make better choices. We all outsource our health to some extent until you realize, oh, I'm responsible for that. And we have to remember the processed food is on purpose to addict us to the chemicals and the different flavorings. So if you start, like, if you don't even have any desire to start a garden, even in like with one pot, like, make better choices when you go to the grocery store and start cooking at home more. And it's really a matter of desire rather than time, because if something's important to you, you will find the time to do it. And I don't care how busy you are. I have talked for decades to people who are some of the most high-powered,
Mhm.
successful people with lives that are crazy and busy, and they still find time to eat healthy and make good choices. So there's got to be I'm responsible for what my
Mhm.
health looks like, because responsibility equals freedom. If you're responsible, there's a lot of freedom that's involved with that.
Amen. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally agree.
So, when it comes to mental health and herbs,
I was
what
waiting for this.
what can you tell us about that?
Well, okay, so this is really where I like to take a completely holistic view. I think one of the first things that people need to do is they need to change their lifestyle as far as what they eat, because your mental health depends a lot on what your chemical body is doing, your biology. How is it responding to the food that you're eating? And you can't cover up a poor lifestyle with either prescription drugs or even herbal medicine. You need to get that foundation in there first. So this would be the place where I would suggest people start. And then even at the same time, as you're working on that piece, one of my favorite things for mental health are adaptogenic herbs that balance body chemistry, things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, maca root. They help to balance, there's a hormone component in there as well. But when you're able to take herbs that are adaptogenic, which basically think about that, they help your body adapt. And we live in a time where there is so much modern stress that we are used to it. We just think, well, this is just life. No, I have people that will tell me, no, I'm not stressed. And then you look at their life, or you have maybe even a small extended conversation with them, and they are completely stressed. Their adrenals are blown out. They are constantly getting the dopamine from all the technology and the social media that they keep consuming. And it's just they've gotten used to that level of stress. So you have to do something. The herbs help to balance your body chemistry, and then you got to disconnect.
Mm.
You got to step away from your technology. Like that right there would help your mental health.
100%. And I like that you're kind of preferencing this because I mean, we do live in a world where convenience is here everywhere,
Yeah,
and it's really
yeah,
easy to pick things up. And for people who are listening, they're like, okay, I'm going to try these herbs. And then it's like, well, it doesn't work. It's like, well, if you don't do the lifestyle aspect, like I remember when I was a personal trainer, they used to say, you can't outwork out a bad diet.
yeah, yeah.
You can't out herb a stressful lifestyle. So I think
I
that's a
mean,
really
they
good,
definitely help. I mean,
yeah.
there's help, you know. It's like if you eat too much, but you exercise,
Mhm.
the exercise is still going to be helpful. So the goal is to not say, well, I can't do herbs and or I can't exercise until I eat better. There is a way for them to coexist together. But you're absolutely right on for sure.
So if for our listeners, when they're like, okay, we're going to start implementing some of these things into our daily life, what are like the subtle things that they may or may not notice? Like maybe it's I don't get sick as frequently as I normally do, or I don't have as many headaches. Like, what do you notice people sharing about or even your own experience, obviously with your upbringing? What's the impact that people can anticipate?
Well, I think that the first thing is that people will realize that there is a lot of power in plants and plant medicine. Like even like I said with something like cayenne. Cayenne is a absolute powerhouse. In fact, I know many herbalists from around the world at this point, and there's a question we like to ask each other. If you were just to pick 5 herbs to take you through life, what would they be? Almost every single herbalist I've ever talked to, or even naturopath, and even some medical doctors who I've have kind of found me and what I do, and we've collaborated on things. Cayenne pepper is almost always in the top. And so the thing is, it's like what I've noticed is people, first of all, there's an overwhelming sense of well-being when you start adding herbal medicine in. And here's the thing, I believe that the plant kingdom has been hijacked by the pharmaceutical industry. And that's a big, bold statement, but it's true. Because if you have an empowered group, a collective of humanity that's empowered, not just with the easy herbs and spices, but with things like the psychedelics we talked about before we were recording,
Don't get me all
just
excited.
briefly, right? Yeah. So it's like if you have an enlightened and empowered and healthy collective, we're we're not I even hesitate to say it, but we're not control we can't be controlled.
Mhm.
In fact, we're enlightened and we're healthy and we're connected. There is so much wisdom in Mother Nature that when you start diving into this realm, even if it's just on a small amount, like people don't have to, geek out over it like I do. But even on a tiny amount, you realize that it provides everything that we need.
Hmm.
Well, and that
Yeah.
community aspect that you were talking about, I mean, I strongly believe in that. I know for myself, we talk about regulating emotions and calming your nervous system and all of that stuff. And for me, people and
Hmm.
feeling connected to somebody is probably my favorite way to regulate. It brings me the most joy. It works the best for me. And I think connection is such a huge human need. And I think everybody has varying degrees of how much they need, but I think we all need connection.
Mhm.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
and
Yeah.
you saying that the answers are kind of in nature. I mean, first of all, it makes a lot of sense to me, but second, it made me think of this documentary that a client told me about fungus and how the fungus like communicates all through the forest, and there's this like system of communication that connects everything, and everything's connected whether we like to acknowledge it or not. So I think there's a lot of truth. I mean, I am on the same page with you completely. Um, And I don't know what's in your garden, but I'm already jealous. We literally just started talking about
Yeah, you
building.
told me this weekend.
Yeah, this weekend we were talking about it. Planters. We want to build planters and put them in our backyard. And we were thinking we could probably fit three different types of crops in each planter for the size that we're doing. What would you say people should start with as far as what to plant?
So now you guys are located where?
Florida.
Tampa.
Florida. Okay. Oh, good. You guys are in a great spot because you can grow a lot of things in Florida just because of the climate, which
Yeah.
is awesome. Um, so I would grow holy basil.
Oh,
It makes an absolutely delicious tea, and it's a wonderful, beautiful adaptogen. It's in the mint family, so I would suggest planting it. If you've got a planter that you want to put more than one plant in, I would put holy basil in its own pot because it is in the mint family. And if you've ever grown mint, it's a perennial. It'll come back every single year, but it grows. It'll grow. It'll kind of take over a spot unless you have a place where you want it to take over. So holy basil is one that I believe everyone can benefit from, and it makes it, like I said, it makes a really delicious tea. I also love feverfew and it's not only a beautiful medicinal plant, but it's really beautiful in a flower garden. So it will make your garden look beautiful.
mhm.
But the feverfew plant has these little white button flowers. It's in the daisy family, but what it does is it's good for headaches, fevers, and migraines. So super, super nice to have. And the thing is you can harvest the flowers, which are the main part of the plant you use, and dry them, and then use them throughout. You can use them throughout the whole year. In fact, on my I have a little YouTube channel, and I every week I drop a herbal wisdom video, and I kind of talk about, can you grow this in your herbal garden? And here's the climate. There's some things that you would need a hothouse to grow in if you live in a place where it's really, really cold in the winter. But Florida, if you can actually grow quite a few things. But so uh, I would also do echinacea. Echinacea is super, super easy. The flowers are beautiful, so it's a beautiful addition to your flower garden as well as your medicinal garden. Um, Cayenne pepper is easy to grow, and if you're a cayenne pepper lover, I would dry them as they come off. If you have a plant that just grow a ton of them, and I don't know, can you guys grow all year round in Florida, or do
Probably.
you?
Probably.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe not in hurricane season.
Well, yeah, 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 yeah. So those are probably the places I'd start. But things like rosemary, um, rosemary is amazing to have. That's a powerful antimicrobial. You could take and make one of my favorite things is just break off a rosemary twig and steep it in some water. Let it steep for 4 or 5 minutes, and then take the sprig of rosemary out, and you've got this beautiful tea that's good for cold and flu season because it's antimicrobial. It'll go after viruses and bacteria, and you can sip on this amazing tea. So those are the things I'd probably start with.
I like the fact that we can do a tea here because I don't really
Yeah.
like rosemary or cayenne pepper.
Well, that was actually where I was going too. I'm like, I don't really like tea, but I like rosemary and cayenne pepper. I don't put it in my food, but I
We'll
guess
swap.
we're in the same mindset of like, besides cooking or tea, what are the other ways that people can integrate it into their daily life?
Well, so one of my favorite things is to make a tincture. A tincture is actually super, super easy.
Sounds
What
like
and
tea. What do we do here?
So a tincture basically officially a tincture is a full alcohol extraction of a plant. So you take, say, the feverfew flowers and you dry them. So you pick them off, you dry them, and usually they just need to dry overnight. And depends on when you harvest them or and it's just basically clipping off the flower heads. And this is while they're in full bloom. You don't want to wait till the flower has died. You want them to be in full bloom. So you clip them all off. Then you let them dry, and then you chop them up really fine, and then say you get a quart jar, and you fill up the jar with the flowers, all dried flowers, and then you pour something like vodka over it. So you pour alcohol over the top of it, all the way filled up to the top, and then you set it in a sunny window. And once a day for 30 days, you just shake it. So it's super, you're just letting it cure and extract, right? And then after 30 days, then you strain it through like I usually use this, it's like a cheesecloth, like a muslin cloth. And I only use it one time for each herb that I do that for. And then you just put it into little jars or bottles, and then you've got a concentrated tincture. So, and then you could even Google, what percentage of alcohol to herb the ratio might be. Typically, my favorite is a 1 to 2, and we're getting kind of technical here, but just a one to two menstruum where it's two-part alcohol to 1 part plant. So, for example, if I'm going to do a 1 to 2, a gallon of liquid weighs 8 pounds. So I'm going to need 4 pounds of the plant, and I might need to do a double or triple extraction because I can't fit 4 pounds into 1 gallon. So that's all kind of, technical, but it's actually very easy. And there's a video on my YouTube channel about that, about how to make an herbal tincture. And it's just on there.
And
Love
then
that.
you don't get drunk on this tincture, right?
And I mean, no, if you're going to use, if you have an alcohol tincture, you probably only need like 25 drops. So
Okay.
no, you won't. No, I mean, even if you drank the whole thing, it's not going to hurt you, but I would not suggest it.
Fair, fair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so tincture, food, like
Tea
seasoning our food, tea.
and a salve. Like I love making a skin salve. And then in this case, you would want to infuse the herbs into an oil. So you would take the dried flowers or whatever you're using, if it's the root, the leaves, whatever.
Mhm.
Then you would put them into an oil and let them let them kind of sit in a sunny window. And this is not one that you shake every day because you don't want to get a lot of air into it. And then you let the herbs infuse into the oil, you strain them out, and then you can make a skin salve like using beeswax, coconut oil, shea butter. And then you just, make a recipe and then add the herb oil. And then the beeswax helps it, set up into kind of a salve. And then you can use it for skin wounds and skin infections and rashes and different things like that. So there's a lot of really fun, actually super easy things. So
Interesting. Cool.
yeah.
Well,
I,
I know my co-host well,
go ahead.
and if we don't shift to psychedelics, she's going to be very upset.
Well, I have one question first.
Okay.
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 Uh,
Okay.
Going back a couple clicks, you were saying that adaptogens are the way that you tell people to start. And you mentioned maca root. And I was taking that for a little while, but then I was reading that it's best like if you're going through menopause. And I was like, oh, I'm not going through menopause. I don't need this one. So, but you're saying adaptogens are good regardless?
Yeah, I mean, it is very, very good for going through menopause, and having, as a person who's completely out the other side of that, I used maca a lot, but it doesn't mean that you can't use it when you're younger because
Mm,
it's still a powerful adaptogen, and especially for women,
mm,
because we do have a fluctuation in our hormones every single month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
it was probably just stating that it's actually it is very powerful for women going through menopause, but
Mm.
it doesn't mean you only have to use it during menopause. But there's some other things, like if yeah, when I was younger, I loved rhodiola. I still like that. Ashwagandha, those are two great adaptogens. And then something like suma, that would be definitely something to look into, is suma root. And suma is really well known for what it does for your hormones. So
Okay.
yeah.
I know there's a psychiatrist out in LA that I follow, and he had said that saffron was showing in clinical studies to be as effective as Prozac. So I thought I could get off my Prozac and do just saffron. Turned out that did not work out very well for me, but I do take it still every day, and I do feel like it helps me a lot. So do you
That's
have
great.
any words on that?
No, I agree that it does, this is one of those things where it's like there are properties in saffron that are make up the component of some of the prescription drugs like Prozac,
Mm.
which is really fascinating, right?
Hmm.
So, so yeah, I think the fact that you're still taking it says a lot about, there's an intuition that I think we feel when, even when we study and look at we do research on something like saffron. And even though it didn't work exactly like the way you wanted it to, there was still something in there that intuitively you were like, this still feels right for my body. And I can tell that it's making a difference. This is where we need to get back to, in my opinion, where we're listening to our intuition over our intellect, because our intellect is very strong. We nurture that from when we're really young, and it gets nurtured in us by our parents. But then here's the intuition, which is extremely strong. And when are growing up, our intellect is the only thing that gets nurtured, and it goes and goes and goes. Then when our intuition tries to pipe in on something, our intellect goes, no, that's not right. There's something
Yeah.
else. So I think, and I don't know how I went off on that, but I think it was just that you were
Yeah.
still benefiting from saffron.
Yeah.
I think that if we pay attention to that and we nurture that, and I think this is where psychedelics come in, because they help open that heart space and they open that piece of us that's like, oh, I'm connected to nature, and this herb makes sense for me to add in. And our intuition is never wrong. It's our guiding compass. And
Mhm.
usually if we don't follow it, it's because our damn intellect, our ego is taking over. And we haven't, we need to nurture our intuition.
Mm, I agree with that completely. I
Yeah.
think in the mental health field, one thing that I'm very grateful for is that there is nothing that works for everyone. So
Mhm.
you have to be open to other things that might work for people.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm constantly interested in what else is going on, what else is out there for us to be doing, because maybe there's something that will work for someone that they haven't tried before or whatever. So I like to stay up on all of these things. And you sound like we need to have like multiple conversations with you, because you know so much about what we can do for ourselves by ourselves. And I think, you politely danced around it, but I think we need a lot more of that in our lives. I think we need to be reliant on ourselves and
Yep.
our community more than we have been in the last 100 years.
Yeah. Well, I think the world's waking up to that. And from my perspective, it's really beautiful to see. And it's not about forcing other people or pushing other people. It's about, for what I've realized, it's about setting an example. At this place where I am in my life, I don't have to, rail on anybody, even the people that I love. If I see them suffering, and I think yeah, I can see that for the most part, it might be unnecessary. I no longer try to say, oh, well, if you change your diet here, or hey, if you do this, and if you did, I no longer do that, because what I find is the most powerful thing I do is I set an example. I practice what I preach.
Yep.
If someone asks me, I'll give my opinion, but I don't. And then there's also this whole beautiful rise in consciousness, and it includes the quantum entanglement. If you think about, we're all connected. So when I energetically do something, or it's going out, and there's an entanglement of intention and consciousness that is felt, and people might not realize it, but to me, this is the most beautiful time to be alive. I think all these things are meshing, because we do need modern medicine. We need surgery and a pharmaceutical, and we might need to have acupuncture and Reiki, and everything needs to be in one beautiful spot so that people can go in and get what's best for them. And the natural world is not fighting with the conventional world. It needs to all be in one beautiful place, because we're transitioning. I think people are wanting to get out of drugs more and wanting to prevent the surgery if they can. I think there's a huge desire for that, but there's a lot of people who aren't ready. You can't just all of a sudden stop all your drugs. You know what I mean? There needs to be guidance, there needs to be education, there needs to be all of these things. So we're in an interesting place in human history right now.
I share your optimism,
Yeah.
as sometimes our external world can be scary. And,
Yeah.
since we're talking about mental health in general, like there's a spike in anxiety for a reason. And I think that, sometimes things have to everyone has their rock bottom. And like maybe this is our rock bottom that's like slowly starting to wake people up and shift people. And I really do like how you approach it because I found something similar works. Like no one likes the person being like, "Oh, you're doing this wrong. That's why you're suffering." And
Yeah.
even though like that might come from the right place, when people are ready to accept a role in their own change, take on that responsibility, they see how you're being and know who to go to. So to your point, like modeling that example and just like holding space for when people are ready.
Yep.
Hmm.
100%.
Hmm.
Okay, so another question for me and for the listeners,
For you. But yeah.
mostly for me. Okay,
Gee,
um,
you're so cute.
thank
Isn't she?
one of the things that I always struggle with is if I'm gonna buy herbs, okay, if I'm taking the easy way out, don't judge me. Uh,
Balance.
I never know which brand to get. Like, do I just go with the CVS brand? Because I feel like, no, that feels wrong.
What's your intuition say?
Yeah. So, do you have suggestions for that? Or can we find it on your YouTube channel?
No, there's not on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I mean, I carry on my dad's work. He passed away 27 years ago, and I restarted his company 23 years ago. And at this point, my job, as a woman in my 60s, I want to just help educate people. But I do have a beautiful little online herbal business that was my dad's original formulas, and I've added a few. But here's the thing that you can do when you're looking for herbal supplements. There is a lot out there. There's a lot of good things out there, but you as a consumer, and it's not the easy way out because you need to do a little bit of due diligence. So what we personally do is when we get the herbs in their raw form to make a blend, basically it goes through a very comprehensive lab test. So it gets tested for correct species. It gets tested for heavy metals. It gets tested for microbes to make sure there's no mold or bacteria or anything on them. And then after it passes the first lab test, then it goes into the formula, and then it gets another lab test when it's in the final blend to make sure that all the markers are there. Like if there's a blend with 8 things in it, to make sure that they are all represented in the blend. And then what's produced at the end is what's called a COA, which is a certificate of analysis. And any company that you buy herbs from, and I don't care if they're in a big box store or in a pharmacy or wherever you get them, any company should be able to provide this for you. And if you can just go to their website, this is where the little bit of homework comes in, because once you do that initial homework, then you can confidently purchase from a company that you find. So they should be able to send you a certificate of analysis on anything. And then again, always look at the ingredients. So for example, you might find a company that can provide a really good certificate of analysis, but one of the ingredients is organic rice flour, say in a capsule. Well, that's just a filler. And it sounds like it's good because it's organic and you're thinking, rice is good. But they're just filling up the capsule because the expensive part of what makes the product good is the actual herb. So again, you still have to read the label and get a little bit of knowledge so that you know what you're doing. And that once you do that and you find your sources, then you can very confidently say, all right, these are the companies I trust. And you don't have to grow it yourself and make your own tinctures and make your own salves. And that's a lot. That's a lot to do, but they should be able to send it to you.
Okay.
It's also an investment though. Like to your point, like
Yes.
how we spend our
Yes.
time and how we
Yep.
like the busiest people will say they don't have time, but you make time for what matters. And I know like I've had digestive challenges since I was 30, and then I went to France in October. Apparently, I don't have digestive issues in France. Is that because of my digestive system or is that because of the food I'm consuming, right? So that alone was massive for me. And I already was cooking every week, every day. But it actually made me enjoy the art of it more because I was
Yeah.
viewing it more as like I'm investing in my own well-being, to your point. And I had two other thoughts. One super random, but how the hell are you 60? I mean, do herbs help with like
Uh,
teeth and stuff like that? Because I
Oh
thought you
my
were
gosh.
40, like for
Oh,
real.
I'm
Mental
almost
crazy.
64. I'll be 64 in May.
So we need like a skincare regimen, herbal care
We gotta
regimen,
get all her
understand
sads.
that,
That's what we're
all the
doing
stuff.
here.
But
Thank
I
you.
had a question
Thank
about
you.
um
You're very sweet.
thank you. I'm also very honest, which isn't always sweet, but in this case it is. Um, do you have or have you ever thought of like creating like an intro program of like merging your life from, what it is with, you know, convenience to how to embody and really make this part of like your lifestyle?
I have an online course I started about 6 or 7 years ago just because I couldn't put things on YouTube and stuff because I was getting censored. It was really
Mm.
weird. Not really weird, but when you speak the truth, you get censored, you find out. I haven't really thought of that, but it's a very good idea.
Well, if you do, let me know because I know a lot of people who'd be interested. I would definitely be one of them because it like we specialize, well, I guess I specialize more in behavior change,
Hmm.
um, and like helping people stop their stress and like kind of redefine their relationship with stress and redefine how they even quantify and qualify their time. And
Yeah.
so like so many of the things that my clients they struggle with around it, I'm like, if they had like a how-to guide that was like a baby step by step, I can see it being very supportive in helping kind of guide them towards the light, so to speak. So,
Yeah, I do. So 7 years ago, I wrote a little book called Jane's Book of Healthy Habits, and it's got 40 just easy daily stuff, like stuff that you can easily implement. And one of them is like um, forgiveness. So it's not just about, there are lifestyle things in there. But I have, and I'll send a link to you guys. It's a call, I had it made into a peak health checklist where it's just like 7 pages. So I took my little book of healthy habits and I put it into just a peak health checklist. And it's actually 7 pages of these 40 tips that are, because over the years I've had people ask me, well, what is it that you do? Like, because I don't have any health problems, I'm not on any medications, I never have been.
your face is glowing.
Well, and it's like I practice what I preach, and I feel so lucky that I was in the fitness industry,
Hmm.
and I work out every day still, even though I'm not in the gym teaching or managing. I still work out every day. So it's not like I'm going to say, well, you should do this and not do it myself.
Right.
So I think that the proof is always in the pudding when you know, if I say do this and this and this, and then I don't embody what I'm saying, then it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did date a Mormon guy once, and I remember
Newsflash. How do I
I,
not know about this
I
yet?
remember well, he left the church. I should say that. He left the church. Apparently that's not easy to do either. But anyway, um
True.
I remember that we were out drinking one night, and when we got home, he wanted to eat, and he was like, how about some yogurt? And I was like, what? Who eats yogurt after drinking? And he explained to me that the way he grew up, it was very much about being healthy and taking care of your body. And I don't know if that played a role in your parents in the way that I assume it would, in the way that they brought you guys up. But I think that's sad that it doesn't exist in other religions or ways of being nurturing and developing.
Yeah.
You know what? Here's the thing. We in the Western world, we are the ones that are the odd ones. I mean, most of the world and the people that are on it, they turn to natural remedies first. And the way that they eat local, they eat close to the land, they prepare their own food. They have all these little traditions in different cultures, and it's in the West, we are way backward. Like and we think that we're so advanced and we have all these modern drugs and they're all so wonderful, and we're off. We're the ones that are off base. So I think that what happens is a lot of these little traditions, like, not only the way I was raised, but eating yogurt after a meal or before, like the beneficial bacteria and the probiotics that are in a really good yogurt. There's a lot of bad yogurt out there. But I think that there's still a lot of this in, like, think about your grandma's, cold and flu remedy where she has you drink this thing, or your great aunt made this concoction, or your grandpa did this. Like, there's still these things that are kind of lingering. In fact, I'm that wacky grandma. My grandkids are 11 and 13, and they don't think I'm wacky. They actually think I'm pretty cool, but that's me. I'm like, you know, giving my granddaughter who's going through puberty adaptogens and CBD and helping her with, it's like, and they reach for these things now because they grew up with them. So this is really where I see the world going. So, like your example of your friend eating yogurt after drinking, yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Well, I appreciate your time today. This was really cool and got me all jazzed up. So I'm really excited about my garden now.
Yeah.
We had
I
a hard
mean,
time getting this scheduled. That was crazy.
that's my fault. Sorry. That
No,
was me. That one's on me.
that's okay. That's okay. All things happen the way they're supposed to.
Agreed. But I will echo Alicia. I mean, the word that just keeps like randomly ringing in my head is just alignment in so
Mhm.
many facets. And honestly, it's having conversations like this with strangers, because that's ultimately what we are.
Yeah.
Provides so much hope for me in like what's possible, and that there are so many other people out there like trying to model and teach and inform. And I think as we continue to embark in the unknown, remembering that is going to be pivotal for me, I can say. So I just want to like deeply thank you for the authenticity, the wisdom, helping Alicia figure out her garden and get rid of her herbs from 5 years ago. I mean, we're definitely detoxing that. That's great. But truly, just thank you for everything you provided. And I definitely would love to have you back on again.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
All right. Well, we will hope to get you back on our schedule soon. And again, thank you so much. This is very useful for everyone. And, we'll be pointing people to your YouTube channel and anything else you want to send our way, we'll be happy to disperse. So
Okay.
thank you so
Yeah, yeah. And you can easily find me at barlowherbal.com. Like super easy.
There
Okay.
you go.
All
Yeah.
right. Awesome.
And thank you for having me on, you guys. You guys are lovely.
Awesome. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.